This is a true story adaptation. In a dilapidated hostel in the town of Daejeon, the police discovered the headless body of a man lying face down on the cold floor. Next to it, a large suitcase contained tools and materials, suspected to be part of a gruesome plot to dismember and dispose of the body. Amidst the chaos, the police quickly arrested a woman believed to be the victim's lover. Could she be the murderer behind this horrific crime? And what could have driven her to commit such a brutal act? Before diving into the details of the case, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss the darkest and most terrifying stories. Around 3 p.m. on January 7th, as usual, Shaojian Hostel's owner, Mr. Li, began his routine of checking the rooms. But that day, as he stepped onto the ground floor, he noticed something strange. A red, murky liquid was flowing from the drain. Sensing that something was wrong, he hurried upstairs, following the strange red liquid, which led him to room 203. Mr. Li, frustrated, repeatedly knocked on the door of room 203, even loudly calling out. Inside, there was a woman, but she kept making excuses, refusing to open the door. His suspicion grew, and without hesitation, he immediately called the Daejeon police station to report this suspicious situation. Just 35 minutes after receiving the report, Station Chief Huang Mintai and his colleagues arrived at the scene. He immediately directed some officers to block all the exits of the hostel, ensuring that no one could escape. Deputy Station Chief Zhang Jishu, with a stern expression, quickly received the order and rushed upstairs without hesitation. Right at the door of room 203, Zhang Jishu encountered a woman, frantically trying to find a way to flee. The woman had a panicked look, her face pale, resembling someone who had just done something wrong. She was trembling uncontrollably, likely realizing that there was no escape for her now. Officer Zhang Jishu, without hesitation, swiftly restrained the woman so she couldn't escape. Meanwhile, other officers stormed in, searching every corner of the room. When the bathroom door of room 203 was opened, a horrifying scene unfolded, leaving everyone in stunned silence. A headless body lay face down on the cold floor, blood from the wounds staining the tiles red. The air in the room was chilling to the bone, mixed with the overwhelming stench of blood, sending shivers down the spines of everyone present. Shortly after, Police Chief Lu Shangding, along with dozens of officers, arrived at Shaojian Hostel, sealing off the entire area. At the same time, Criminal Investigation Team Leader Chen Bizhan led a group of forensic experts to the scene. They began a thorough examination of room 203. At the scene, fresh bloodstains were scattered across the floor, and on the bed was a large suitcase along with some bags, seemingly prepared to hold the victim's dismembered body parts. The victim's head was wrapped in a plastic bag, placed right next to the body. The police seized a blood-stained cleaver and 2 smaller fruit knives, all of which were identified as the weapons used by the perpetrator. Faced with undeniable evidence, the suspect, Chen Mu, who was apprehended at the scene, had no choice but to confess to her crime. This woman admitted that she had participated in the murder and dismemberment along with her ex-husband, Shen Mu, who, despite their divorce, continued to live with her. With a weary expression, Chen Momo confessed to everything that had happened. The victim, Yumo Wen, and Chen Momo had begun an illicit relationship in March 2006. Just a year later, Chen Momo's husband discovered the affair, flew into a rage, and demanded a divorce. One would think that after their divorce, things would end, but that wasn't the case. Just a few months later, despite his lingering resentment and anger, Shenmo found ways to coerce Chen Mo into living with him again. For Shenmo, being betrayed was an unbearable humiliation. His fury did not subside, and his hatred toward Yumo Wen, the man who had interfered in his marriage, became an all-consuming obsession. By November 2007, Shenmo's rage began to reach its breaking point. As time passed, Shenmo's anger didn't fade, and he continued to physically and mentally abuse Chen Mo. For Shenmo, Chen Mo was no longer the ex-wife he once loved, but merely a pawn in his ruthless plan for revenge. In his mind, there was likely only one thing that could ease his anger: the death of Yumo Wen, whom he saw as the source of all his suffering. He relentlessly forced Chen Mo to seduce and lure Yumo Wen to a place that only they knew. Every detail of the plan was meticulously crafted by Shenmo. His mind was filled with horrifying visions of how Yumo Wen would pay the price. On January 7th, at around 2:30 p.m., Chen Mo lured Yumo Wen to room 203 of a hostel in Daejeon. But Yumo Wen had no idea that the moment he stepped into this room, his life was as good as over. According to the prearranged plan, Chen Mo turned on the television and cranked the volume to its maximum to drown out any noises from the room. Meanwhile, Shen Mo, hiding in the bathroom, was ready to execute the brutal plan they had laid out. When everything was in place, Chen Mo signaled, and the two launched their attack without hesitation. Shen Mo's first knife plunged deep into Yumo Wen's chest, followed by a flurry of additional stabs. Each slash was filled with the long-held rage that had been festering inside Shen Mo. Caught off guard, Yumo Wen had no time to defend himself and collapsed after enduring the fatal blows. But it seemed that ending Yumo Wen's life did not quench Shen Mo's fury. They immediately began dismembering Yumo Wen's body to make it easier to dispose of. However, no matter how carefully the plan was devised, there were still mistakes. The red water flowing from the drain and the strange noises coming from room 203 caught the attention of Mr. Lee, the hostel owner. Without hesitation, he called the police. When the authorities arrived, they arrested Chen Mo at the scene, while the mastermind Shen Mo had already escaped through the roof. After leaving the scene, Shen Mo hid in the desolate mountains for several days and nights to evade the police search. Eventually, after wandering for days, Shen Mo arrived at Songhua, an isolated, barren place. There were no residents there, only small trails leading into dense bushes. On January 13th, feeling lonely and exhausted, he decided to call his family, a call he knew could change everything. The phone rang in his hand, and a familiar voice echoed from the other side. The heartfelt advice, the invisible tears over the phone waves, touched his heart. After that final conversation, he decided to go to the police station and confess. Under the surprised gaze of everyone, Shen Mo raised his hands, accepting surrender and facing the punishments that awaited him. At the trial that followed, Shen Mo and Chen Mo had to confront the horrific crimes they had committed. Both were charged with premeditated murder, and throughout the trial, each horrifying detail of the case was revealed, leaving the courtroom in stunned silence. Witnesses, acquaintances, and even the victims' relatives were present to hear the testimony and see the outcome of the trial. Shen Mo, the mastermind and the one who directly carried out the act, not only faced the judgment of the law, but also the horrified and contemptuous stares of those present. His crimes were too great to excuse. Finally, after many debates and analyses, Shen Mo was sentenced to the highest penalty: death. With this sentence, he had to pay with his own life for the barbaric crime he had committed. As for Chen Mo, although she didn't carry out the murder herself, her active participation in the plan could not be overlooked. She was convicted as an accomplice and enabler of the intentional murder, and the sentence handed down to her was equally severe. Chen Mo received a life sentence, a harsh punishment that clearly reflected the severity of the law, but also left her with the rest of her life in prison to reflect on the sins she had committed. Meanwhile, those who attended the trial, including the police officers who had directly investigated the case, and even the victims' relatives, couldn't help but be shocked by the sheer brutality of the case. It was a story of ruthless betrayal, bloodshed, and inescapable hatred. The horror of the case spread through the community, serving as a grim warning of the terrifying consequences of rash decisions, blind emotions, and a lack of control. In the end, it was all over. The trial closed, the sentences were delivered, and the defendants were taken away. But the scars left by the case would remain in the minds of those left behind. They were scars of the heart, of trust betrayed, and the marks of a tragedy that no one wanted to remember but could never forget. Next, please follow the case. Unexpected tragedy, deadly secrets hidden behind the model family. In a quiet neighborhood in Frederick, Colorado, the Watts family seemed to be living the perfect life. A loving husband, a vibrant wife, and two beautiful little daughters. But behind closed doors, darkness was slowly creeping in. On a fateful night in August 2018, Chris Watts shattered the illusion of a happy family, committing an unimaginable crime. He coldly took the lives of his pregnant wife, Shannon, and their two daughters, Bella and Celeste, in a brutal act that shocked the entire nation. What drove this seemingly perfect father to murder his entire family? Uncover the chilling details of betrayal, lies, and hidden desires in a case that will forever haunt those who hear about it. Based on a true crime, join us as we unravel this gripping story filled with suspense and tension. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified whenever we release a new video. The house at 2825 Saratoga Trail, Frederick, Colorado, with its spotless white walls, tidy front garden, and peaceful atmosphere, looked like the perfect home that every family dreams of. It was where Shanann Watts, her husband Chris Watts, and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste, had lived for nearly 6 years. From the outside, the house exuded warmth, like the image of an ideal family, with not a single blemish. Shanann, a woman full of energy, was always cheerful and vibrant. She worked as a sales representative for a health and wellness company, a job that not only provided a decent income, but also helped her become a model of a successful woman. Chris, her husband, was an engineer for a major oil company. They met in 2010, fell madly in love, and got married soon after. Their lives were filled with happiness when they welcomed their two little daughters, Bella, born in 2013, and Celeste, born in 2015. The family photos on Shannon's social media were always radiant with smiles, hugs, and overflowing love. But inside that White House, a dark shadow had begun to loom, and the cheerful laughter had gradually given way to a cold silence. Shanann couldn't help but notice the change in Chris. He no longer looked at her with the same affection as before. His kisses were rushed, and his responses were brief when she asked about work or daily life. Every night, as they lay beside each other, Shanann felt as if an invisible wall had formed between them. At times, she told herself it was just the pressure of work and life that he would return to his old self, but reality shattered those fragile hopes. Day by day, Shanann began noticing strange signs from her husband. Chris was constantly coming home late, often using his phone in private, and always wearing a mysterious smile when texting. On nights when Shanann woke up abruptly, Chris would often not be beside her, but instead sitting in the dark living room, his gaze distant, as if contemplating something far away. Shanann tried confronting Chris, asking if something was wrong. But Chris only replied coldly with things like, "I'm just tired. It's nothing." Each time, Shanann's heart tightened, feeling as though she was losing the man she loved and with whom she had shared so many happy moments. What Shanann didn't know was that Chris had been secretly dating Nicole Kessinger, a colleague at his oil company. This relationship wasn't just a typical affair. It had become a crucial part of Chris's life. Nicole was not only his lover, but also someone who stirred up desires buried deep inside him. The longing for freedom, the escape from family responsibilities and obligations. Chris began to imagine a new life without Shanann. He dreamed of peaceful evenings with just him and Nicole, without the sound of children's laughter, without the responsibility of taking care of a family. It was the life he craved, a life where he could be completely in control. Shanann, though unaware of the full truth, had an instinctive sense that something terrible was about to happen. She felt the tension in every gesture Chris made. Dark dreams began to torment Shanann. She dreamt of Chris standing in the shadows, smiling wickedly as she called out his name. She dreamt of herself being pushed into a void, falling endlessly with nothing to grasp. These dreams were not just signs of anxiety, they seemed like warnings of the horror that was about to unfold. On August 12, 2018, Shanann returned from a long business trip. A colleague dropped her off at home around 2 a.m. The house was dark when she entered, with no signs of life. Shanann went into the bedroom, where Chris was already lying down, but she didn't feel the familiar warmth from her husband. Instead, there was a chilling coldness in the air. She didn't know this would be the last time she would lie in that bed. Chris, with an eerie calmness, had decided to act that night. In the darkness of the room, he looked at his wife with eyes devoid of love, filled only with hatred and despair. He had decided that not only Shanann, but also their 2 daughters would no longer exist in this world. Shanann didn't know that Chris had already planned to murder the entire family. While she was asleep, he struck, strangling her until she could no longer breathe. Shanann's weak cries echoed in the night, but no one could hear. The darkness swallowed all sound. When Chris killed Shanann, Bella and Celeste were still asleep. He couldn't let his daughters survive. He feared they would remember that horrific night and one day accuse him. In that moment, Chris was no longer human. He had turned into a monster, driven by selfishness and dark ambition. Bella, the 4-year-old, woke up as her father entered the room. She smiled and called out to him in her innocent voice, "Papa, Papa," unaware that the next few moments would be her last. He killed her right there, strangling his little girl with the same hands that had once embraced her. Celeste, the 3-year-old, was killed soon after, in the absolute silence of the dark night. Chris then took the bodies of Shanann and their 2 daughters outside and buried them at an oil field where he worked. Shanann was buried in a shallow grave, while Bella and Celeste were placed in 2 large oil tanks. He broke the girls' shoulder bones to fit them through the small openings of the tanks. This act was not only brutal, but it also showed Chris's complete loss of humanity. After completing this horrific act, Chris returned home as if nothing had happened. He went to work the next morning, and when questioned by the police about his family's disappearance, he tried to appear innocent, even participating in a television interview, pleading for the community's help. He played the role of the grieving husband and father perfectly, but the truth could not remain hidden forever. The investigation began just 2 days after Shanann and her daughters were reported missing. Nicole, Shanann's best friend, was the first to alert the police when she couldn't reach Shanann. Nicole had a strong feeling something was wrong, especially after learning that Shanann had missed a prenatal appointment. The police immediately went to the Watts family home. Chris, with an unsettling calmness, welcomed the police and even allowed them to search the house. During the search, the police found that everything seemed completely normal, with no signs of a struggle or violence. Shanann's phone, wallet, and medication were still in the house, but there was no trace of her or the girls. This raised suspicions about their mysterious disappearance. Gradually, the pieces of the truth began to emerge. The police discovered Chris's suspicious behavior. Shortly after his family's disappearance, he had called the school to inform them that his daughters would not be attending anymore. He also contacted a real estate company to sell the house. The police also found that Chris's car had been at the oil field where he worked on the morning Kampschreg. Shanann disappeared, contradicting his initial statement. As Chris tried to maintain his image as an innocent husband and father, the police monitored his every move. A crucial turning point came when they decided to administer a lie detector test. Chris failed the test, and as the truth began to surface, he started to panic. On August 15, 2018, after the police found traces of the Watts family's bedsheets at the oil field, Chris was arrested and charged with murder. He requested to speak privately with his father. During that conversation, Chris confessed to killing his wife. But in an attempt to lessen his sentence, Chris offered a false excuse. He blamed Shanann. He claimed that Shanann had killed their daughters in a fit of rage after discovering he wanted a divorce, and that in his anger, he had strangled her. However, the police didn't believe this story. They found no evidence to suggest Shanann had harmed her daughters. Instead, the evidence showed that Chris had brutally killed both his wife and children during that horrific night. On August 16, 2018, just 1 day after Chris was arrested, the police found Shanann's body buried in the ground at the oil field. Nearby, they discovered the bodies of Bella and Celeste, submerged deep within 2 large oil tanks. When the police and rescue teams recovered the bodies of the 2 girls, many couldn't hold back their tears at the sight of such brutality. The fragile bodies had been crushed and deformed, with their shoulder bones broken to fit through the tank openings, which were only about 20 centimeters wide. It was an image that would haunt everyone present at the scene forever. Autopsy results revealed that Shanann was 16 weeks pregnant when she was killed. The forensic doctors noted that the fetus had been expelled from the uterus, likely due to the immense pressure when Chris sat on her chest during the strangulation. From the autopsy results, the police confirmed that Chris had murdered his wife and children, with no evidence linking Shanann to the deaths of their daughters. During the investigation, the police also delved into Chris's relationship with Nicole Kessinger. Nicole testified that she knew nothing of Chris's plans and was completely shocked to learn about the case. She claimed that Chris had lied to her, making her believe that he and Shanann were in the process of getting a divorce. Nicole immediately cut off contact with Chris after learning the truth, but their affair had been a major driving force behind Chris's heinous actions. On August 20th, 2018, Chris Watts was indicted on 9 charges, including 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree murder of children under 12, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with deceased human bodies. Chris attempted to reduce his sentence by negotiating with the prosecution to avoid the death penalty. Ultimately, he confessed to all of his crimes. Chris was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, 48 years for the unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 36 years for tampering with bodies. He will spend the rest of his life in prison, isolated and haunted by the atrocities he committed. The house in Frederick, once the home of the Watts family, now stands cold and abandoned. The spirits of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste seem to linger there, never at peace. Each night, neighbors say they can hear the faint cries of children, the sound of footsteps gliding across the stairs, and a chilling coldness that permeates the air whenever someone passes by the house. The story of Chris Watts is not just a simple family tragedy. It also reflects the darkness of the human soul. From a loving husband and father, Chris transformed into a ruthless murderer, driven by selfishness and personal ambition. His dreams of a new life, free from family responsibilities, led him to the abyss of guilt. And now he must pay the price for his actions, imprisoned by the darkness of his conscience and the cold walls of a prison cell. Chris once had it all: a loving family, a dream home, a bright future. But in a dark moment of his life, he lost everything in pursuit of hollow illusions. The murdered souls of his wife and daughters will forever haunt him, not just in his own mind, but in the minds of all who know about this horrific crime. Next, please follow the case. Female flight attendant murdered, body hidden in closet for 4 days. When the flight attendant's sister opened the wardrobe to check, firefighters discovered the victim's decomposing body in a kneeling position. The strange thing is that the family members living with the girl did not smell any foul odor for the past 4 days. The murder case of the flight attendant in the wardrobe shocked Hong Kong for a long time with its intricate details. The mysterious death of the beautiful flight attendant sparked many rumors. From there, her true life was exposed, helping the police track down the perpetrator. Although they identified the suspect's identity, it took 3 years for the police to arrest him. Let's explore the truth behind Hong Kong's most horrific murder case, with the mysterious details still behind. This is a true story adaptation. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications whenever there is a new video. The setting of this story takes place in Hong Kong, China. On December 4th, 2013, in a private apartment in Tsuen Wan Garden, Hong Kong, Chen Manyi, a young and beautiful woman, was meticulously organizing her luggage in preparation for an upcoming business trip. In the quiet atmosphere of the room, the doorbell suddenly rang loudly, shattering the peace of the space. At first, she thought it was a family member returning home, so without any caution, she hurriedly went to the door, with a slight annoyance in her heart. "Why didn't you bring the key this time?" Chen Manyi opened the door while frowning slightly, not immediately noticing anything unusual. However, as soon as the door opened, the image of the person standing before her stunned Chen Manyi. Her eyes immediately changed, pupils dilated, and her face showed fear. The person standing at the door was not the family member she expected, but an uninvited guest. Although she did not want to, she had to reluctantly invite the stranger into her home. The atmosphere in the room became tense and suffocating. The two faced each other, not exchanging many words, but the tension between them seemed to slice through the air. After only a short time, the guest left the apartment, carrying coldness and mystery with him. Chen Manyi also disappeared mysteriously thereafter. Her family had no doubts, still believing that she had gone to work at the airline as planned, so no one was worried. 4 days later, on December 8th, Chen Manyi's younger sister, Chen Manzhen, went to the apartment to check the room and discovered the most horrifying thing in her life. While opening the wardrobe, she was shocked to find Chen Manyi's corpse lying inside, already beginning to decompose. Why was Chen Manyi murdered? Who was the guest whose face changed the last time he met the beautiful flight attendant? Chen Manyi was born into a humble family in Hong Kong, where her family had only a small, cramped apartment and not much living condition. She was the eldest daughter among 3 sisters, bearing the responsibility of caring for and protecting her younger siblings since they were very young. Chen Manyi's parents were ordinary workers, doing manual labor jobs with low wages, just enough to cover their daily lives. After many years of diligently saving every small wage, they finally had enough money to buy a small house in Sunwan Garden, a densely populated residential area. This was an important milestone for their family, as it was the first time they had a stable place to live and no longer had to worry about renting or moving. The house, though not very spacious, was the result of many years of hard work, a pride that the parents always wanted to bestow upon their children. As the eldest daughter in the family, Chen Manyi had been aware of her responsibilities since childhood. She always strives to fulfill her role as the eldest sister, not only helping her parents with household chores, but also taking care of her 2 younger sisters when their parents have to work all day. Despite the many difficulties in life, Chen Manyi never complains. On the contrary, she is always diligent, patient, and eager to learn. Neighbors often praise Chen Manyi as a well-behaved, polite girl who always knows how to conduct herself properly. Determined not to disappoint her parents, since she was still in school, Chen Manyi set a goal for herself to enter a prestigious university. Years of diligent study, along with relentless effort, helped her achieve remarkable academic accomplishments. Possessing a tall, beautiful appearance with a graceful face and a charming smile, she always attracts others' attention. Many people even advised her to pursue a career as a flight attendant, a job considered prestigious and high-paying in Hong Kong. They believed that with her outstanding looks and excellent communication skills, Chen Manyi would have a bright future in this industry. In response to everyone's praise, Chen Manyi did not become arrogant. Instead, she worked even harder. Hong Kong is a place where every inch of land is precious, where everyone must race to survive. Chen Manyi understands this better than anyone. She tells herself to work even harder, striving each day to build a bright future for herself and her family. After graduating high school with excellent grades, she passed the difficult entrance exams and was officially admitted to the University of Hong Kong. This was the first step for her to nurture her grand dream of becoming a flight attendant, a job not only highly regarded, but also greatly admired in Hong Kong. At that time, being a flight attendant was a dream for many, not only because of the attractive salaries, but also due to the prestige and the opportunity to travel around the world. Compared to other workers who have to spend many years to get a raise, flight attendants seem to have a stable income. With her pleasing appearance and confident demeanor, Chen Manyi was officially hired by Cathay Dragon, one of Hong Kong's leading airlines. In her work, Chen Manyi always appeared professional and friendly to everyone. She was loved by her colleagues for her approachable personality and high responsibility. Chen Manyi always adhered to all regulations, performed her duties well on flights, and almost never received complaints from passengers. Upon receiving her first salary, the joy within Chen Manyi overflowed. She did not hesitate to organize a lavish party to treat her family. More than half of her salary was sent to her parents to help them make ends meet, showing her filial piety. Chen Manyi is a girl who deeply loves her family. She lives harmoniously and maintains very good relationships with everyone in the household. No one could have imagined that a vibrant girl, at the peak of her youth, could become a victim of a mysterious murder. The first person to discover the body on December 8th was her younger sister, Chen Manjin. Overwhelmed with fear, Chen Manjin immediately called the police. After the police arrived at the scene, they immediately conducted a thorough autopsy of Chen Manyi. On the victim's body, there were no obvious wounds, nor any signs of a violent altercation or fierce resistance. However, the only distinct trace easily noticeable was a deep mark on the neck, indicating that the victim had been strangled. The time of death of Chen Manyi was determined by forensic experts to be December 4th, meaning she had died approximately 4 days before her body was discovered. The victim's family also provided important information, stating that on that day, no one was at home except Chen Manyi. Her parents and 2 younger sisters had all gone out to work. Chen Manyi had a flight on that day and was preparing her belongings at home when her sister Chen Manjin left the house. This detail was further corroborated when Chen Manyi was found in the flight attendant uniform she had prepared for the flight. When investigating the scene, the police noted that there were no signs of struggle between the victim and the perpetrator. The doors and windows of the house showed no signs of being damaged or forced in from the outside. This further clarified that the victim might have voluntarily opened the door for the murderer to enter the house. Additionally, only Chen Manyi's mobile phone and bank card were missing. No other valuable items were taken. This ruled out the possibility of a regular theft, and the police began to suspect that the culprit might be someone Chen Manyi knew. According to the information gathered, on the day of the incident, Chen Manyi likely voluntarily opened the door for the perpetrator. The two may have had an argument or some disagreement, leading the perpetrator to act out in anger. After committing the crime, the perpetrator hid the victim in the wardrobe in the private bedroom. Due to the cold weather in Hong Kong in December, the wardrobe still had ice packs, so Chen Manyi's family did not detect any foul odor. The building where Chen Manyi's family lived was equipped with surveillance cameras. The police quickly contacted the condominium management to retrieve the footage. They meticulously analyzed the footage of people entering and leaving the building at the time of Chen Manyi's murder. To identify and recognize individuals who might know the victim, the police called Chen Manzhen to review and analyze the recorded footage. The footage captured by the surveillance camera was chaotic and difficult to follow, leading the police and Chen Manzhen to spend hours watching without discovering any significant clues. The atmosphere in the surveillance room grew tense, with exhaustion evident on everyone's faces. Just when everyone seemed on the verge of giving up, Chen Manzhen's eyes suddenly lit up. She jumped up and said urgently, "Wait, can you rewind that part? I think I just saw someone familiar." The police immediately refocused, rewinding the clip as requested by Chen Manjin. When the video replayed, Chen Manjin confidently pointed at the screen, her voice growing louder, filled with unwavering certainty. "It's him. It's definitely him. He's the killer." The person Chen Manjin referred to was Mo Nxian, the ex-boyfriend of her older sister, Chen Manyi. They had broken up a long time ago, but Mo Zhenxian's presence at the apartment raised many questions. Chen Manjian's statement opened up a new direction for the investigation, helping the police gradually piece together the events between Mo Junxian and Chen Manyi. Despite being sisters, their lives were completely different. Chen Manyi, with her gentle and intelligent demeanor, was admitted to the Chinese University of Hong Kong and later became a flight attendant. In contrast, Chen Manjian did not pursue higher education and worked at a bar. The younger sister always felt her life wasn't as prestigious as her older sisters, but the bond between them remained strong. As a result, Chen Manyi often went to the bar to pick up her younger sister after her late shifts. It was at this bar that Chen Manyi met Mo Junxian and began dating him. He came from an upper-class family whose parents were wealthy thanks to investments in the transportation industry. However, the wealth and indulgence he received from his family did not lead to Mo Junxian's success in life. Instead, he became a hedonist, disinterested in education, and lacked clear goals in life. Mo Junxian, due to his poor academic performance, was unable to enter university. Relying on his parents' money, he only took low-paying jobs, living a leisurely life and spending money carelessly. Mo Junxian's greatest pleasure was hanging out at bars with his friends. One of the bars Chen Manjian worked at was a place he frequently visited. It was there that he met Chen Manyi, the woman who changed his life and brought their relationship to a tragic end. Chen Manyi possessed an exquisite beauty, with a delicate face and perfect figure, which quickly caught Mo Junxian's attention. Enchanted by her alluring appearance, Mo Junxian began an intense pursuit, determined to win Chen Manyi's heart. At first, under the persistent advances of Mo Junxian, Chen Manyi gradually softened. Mo Junxian's family was not only wealthy but also incredibly generous, which made it hard for many young women to resist someone like him. Chen Manyi was no exception, and she soon fell for Mo Junxian, charmed by his gallant and pampering ways. In the early months of their relationship, Chen Manyi and Mo Junxian experienced a sweet and dreamy time together. Those around couldn't help but envy Chen Manyi, as she seemed to have found a charming prince, a man who was both wealthy and doted on her. Chen Manyi herself believed she had met the true love of her life. In her joy, she did not hesitate to introduce Mo Junxian to her family, and the two began discussing the future, even mentioning marriage. However, that sweetness did not last long. Gradually, cracks in the relationship began to surface as Mo Junxian's true nature was revealed. Although he appeared to be a caring and faithful man in front of Chen Manyi, in reality, he was nothing more than a philanderer. Not only did he secretly have affairs with other women, but he also frequently sought out relationships online, even suspecting Chen Manyi of cheating on him. Mo Junxian's unfounded suspicions left Chen Manyi feeling exhausted and stressed. She could no longer tolerate a boyfriend who was both unfaithful and distrustful. After enduring for some time, they finally decided to break up. However, Mo Junxian skillfully convinced her with sweet words to get back together. Their relationship resumed, but didn't last long. As a horrific event occurred, Mo Junxian began to exhibit violent behavior. Mo Junxian's financial issues were also a major factor that caused their relationship to deteriorate. Due to his lazy nature and unwillingness to strive, Mo Junxian's parents decided to tighten financial control in order to force him to become more responsible. Mo Junxian, who was accustomed to a luxurious life, suddenly found himself in a situation where he no longer had money to spend. Instead of working hard to improve his life, his first thought was to borrow money from his girlfriend, Chen Manyi. Although Chen Manyi had a stable job with a decent income, most of the money she earned had to be used to support her family. Therefore, when Mo Junxian asked to borrow money, she could only help him a few times. However, as the borrowing became more frequent, Chen Manyi started to doubt Mo Junxian's true intentions with the money. When she could no longer meet Mo Junxian's financial demands, she had to face his wrath. During a heated argument, Mo Junxian lost control and attempted to strangle Chen Manyi with the intent to kill her. Terrified, Chen Manyi struggled free from Mo Junxian's violent grip and escaped. From that moment on, Chen Manyi woke up to the reality. She saw through Mo Junxian's true nature and realized that this relationship could no longer continue. With determination, she cut off all contact and ended her relationship with Mo Junxian, never looking back. No one could have predicted that just 3 months later, Chen Manyi would be murdered by Mo Junxian himself. Although the identity of Mo Junxian's killer has yet to be determined by the police, to Chen Manjin, she was certain he was the culprit. Tears streaming down her face, Chen Manjin sobbed. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't worked at that bar, my sister would have never met Mo Junxian. I ruined her life." This led the police to believe that Mo Junxian had fled after committing the crime. Although Hong Kong police conducted extensive searches, Mo Junxian seemed to have vanished into thin air. In an effort to swiftly catch the murderer, the Hong Kong police offered a reward of 300,000 Hong Kong dollars for any information leading to his capture. However, despite the large reward, all leads came to a dead end. Mo Junxian remained elusive. As time passed, the case gradually faded from memory, until 3 years later, in October 2016, an unexpected call from an elderly man in Shenzhen brought the case to light. In a trembling voice, the old man revealed that his son-in-law was none other than Mo Junxian, the man who had been on the run for 3 years after committing murder. He provided full information on Mo Junxian's whereabouts. On October 29th, Shenzhen police surrounded a hair salon where Mo Junxian's wife was working. When a familiar figure appeared, the police immediately ordered action. Mo Junxian, completely caught off guard, was thrown to the ground. When he turned and saw the police uniforms, his face instantly showed signs of despair and defeat. On February 1st, 2017, Mo Junxian was extradited to Hong Kong. There, after hours of intense interrogation, he finally confessed to all of his crimes. On December 4th, 2013, Mo Junxian decided to try to rekindle his relationship with Chen Manyi. In reality, at that time, Chen Manyi had already moved on with a new boyfriend and had healed from the emotional scars of her broken relationship with Mo Junxian. She no longer had any feelings for him. However, Mo Junxian was unwilling to give up. His obsession and selfish pride drove him to visit Chen Manyi's family, hoping for one more chance. As Mo Junxian entered the building where Chen Manyi's family lived, he felt a mix of both nervousness and determination rising within him. He believed that somehow he could convince Chen Manyi to return to him once more. When Chen Manyi opened the door, the surprise and discomfort were evident on her face. Before she could say anything, Mo Junxian rushed into the house and slammed the door shut. Her eyes became vigilant, but she still maintained a calm demeanor, hoping to keep her distance from him. When Mo Junxian pleaded for reconciliation, Chen Manyi refused without hesitation. Her decisive rejection was like a knife stabbing into Mo Junxian's pride, making him feel humiliated and unbearable. He grew furious, his anger erupting uncontrollably. The argument between the two intensified fiercely. In a blind rage, Mo Junxian found the silk scarf on Chen Manyi's flight attendant uniform and used it to cruelly end her life. As Chen Manyi lay motionless on the floor, Mo Junxian stood there, looking at her lifeless body, feeling a terrifying sense of pleasure. From a young age, he had always lived in a well-provided environment, pampered, and able to get anything he wanted. This pampering had shaped his selfish and ruthless personality. He couldn't accept that something he desired would fall into someone else's hands. After killing Chen Manyi, Mo Junxian felt no remorse. He justified his actions by reasoning that he couldn't allow anyone to have what he couldn't possess. Immediately after committing the crime, he fled to Shenzhen, filled with anxiety and fear. He decided to return to Hong Kong, but ultimately lacked the courage to face the truth, so he continued to hide. For 3 years on the run, Mo Junxian lived under a false name in Shenzhen and built a new life with another woman. They even had a child together. But fate cannot be avoided forever. When he was captured and brought back to Hong Kong, Mo Junxian had to face the court and the law. Mo Junxian was charged with premeditated murder and was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment, a sentence that many agreed was just. Although the perpetrator was punished, the beautiful and blossoming life of Chen Manyi could never be restored.